my generation, kind of Gen X into millennials type of stuff, wants to change the world. Social media is a similar way, right? Immediately, it was awesome. Look at what we can do. We can connect with people. And then the negative aspects of social media come out. I think AI is probably going to be about the similar kind of experience, or at least that more, call it tempered attitude towards it.
We're here with Aaron at B-Sides Harrisburg. This is episode number 3. How you doing today, Aaron?
Doing well.
Is this your first podcast?
This is my first podcast experience. Yes.
All right. Yeah. So give a bit of background about yourself.
Yeah. So my name is Aaron Drips. I'm currently an IT operations manager for the federal government. I have a background in U.S. military as an Air Force pilot, and cybersecurity has been kind of my second career. Excited to get in this industry, and I've been doing a lot of learning over the last 5 years or so. It's been exciting, learning what's new and fresh. This is an industry that rapidly changes and evolves quickly. So yeah, I'm on the journey like everybody else. Happy to be here at B-Sides. I love to see this at Harrisburg. It's great.
Yeah. So this isn't your first B-Sides Harrisburg. I'm assuming you've been here numerous times.
Last year, and then this is my second year. So yeah, Harrisburg's got a good thriving cyber community. It's good to see that grow and do it. And kind of, I've not been to any of the other B-Sides. I've kind of heard the legend of them, but yeah.
So you and I, before we started recording, we spoke a little bit about AI and the evolution of AI and what can happen in cybersecurity regarding AI. Could you give a bit of background about what your thoughts are?
So AI, obviously the latest hotness. It's a topic everybody loves to talk about, right? Strong's things, it's new, it's fresh. I think what I'd like to say about AI would be, I think we've been here before, right? There's been technological disruptions that have happened before, brand new technologies. Like we had said before we started, quantum computing was a really big thing. Everybody was excited about this. It's going to break the world. Like everything's changing.
Totally.
The rapid pace of change has been something historians have talked about a lot. Technology obviously been a disruptor, the microprocessor and all that stuff, but AI really no different. I think the terminology gets lost sometimes with the buzzwords. Is it really AI? Is it machine learning? Like slap the AI sticker on something and we can sell that product really good, right? The marketing has got a good plan to sell everything with AI just on top of it. But ultimately, yeah, just watching the industry go as it seems. I think from my experience as an IT ops manager, AI is still something new. Leaders, like commanding officers, like CISOs, CTOs, like CEOs are even like, yeah, we got to get in on this AI thing. People have this fear of missing out. And so there's kind of this rush to the technology, whether it's a chatbot, whether it's actually doing data analytics and like smart stuff, or whether it's just, we think it's AI. And what we're really talking about is smart algorithms and or machine learning that kind of is like, yeah, let's have a better algorithm than just somebody sitting here going through a spreadsheet choosing. I think all the above. Obviously, there is a concern with, I think, people's thoughts and how we interact with it, which I think was where you were going, right?
Yeah, for me, I don't like AI. I've expressed that numerous times on this podcast, but there are some good use cases for it, like building quick scripts or help automate, let's say, an Excel file where you don't want to sift through thousands upon thousands of rows. You could just quickly make a script using AI. That's fine. But when it comes to creativity, we lose out on that. We don't have any creativity anymore because of this AI. I know college students, they love using ChatGPT. It helps them with their final exams, their papers. The ChatGPT just writes everything related to their papers. And I'm scared that my generation is going to, fall apart because of it. What do you think?
I think like all technical revolutions, even the internet, if we rewind and think about the history of the internet, immediately it was awesome. It's a whole new wave, like the awesomeness. And then the negative aspects start to come out, and maybe kind of belatedly, we start to recognize some of the negative consequences of what we developed. My generation, kind of Gen X into millennials type of stuff, wants to change the world. Social media is a similar way, right? Immediately, it was awesome. Look at what we can do. We can connect with people. And then the negative aspects of social media come out. I think AI is probably going to be about the similar kind of experience, or at least that more, call it tempered attitude towards it. There are some benefits. There are some negative trade-offs here. Let's look at what those are and try to make the best of it. Overall, yeah, it's definitely going to be disruptive and a good technology. I'd say on the positive side, my limited interaction, I found it very, very useful. for searching information as an alternative to like a Google search, right? If I can just ask a question instead of filtering manually through search results in a search engine, I can ask a GPT bot to answer this question for me. I very quickly get the answer. Great example of this is references in programming languages. There's not a lot of negative, bad info out there, misleading info, if you will, on syntax for Python or how to write a Rust function, that library call or the command line arguments for like a Linux command. GPT can really help you get to that answer faster. And even socially, if you got a problem, you would go ask a developer, hey, I have this issue. How do I solve this problem? And we like connecting with people that way. If you want to save time or you're just on your own doing that, I think a GPT bot is a great way to do some of that. And obviously, there's that learning behind it and some kind of algorithm that's doing the graph matching to make all that happen. I think that's a really good use case that's not likely to be biased in any way. I think your fear of losing critical analysis skills is definitely a risk, and people relying on it as a crutch. And now we don't really think for ourselves. We lose the practical skills to actually write and author good things. And even what language becomes, we're just going to morph into like one common language because it's based on what these models have said. Well, this is the proper way to write versus, language has always been fluid. It's evolved. And so if we start having the computer determine what our language is going to be, I mean, maybe does that constrain us? I don't know. That's definitely kind of be interesting to see how that grows and develops, and or even generational differences and how they interact with this, right? I don't see baby boomers really getting in on this, but the younger generations, as this thing goes, right? How is this going to evolve? What's going to happen? And just, I think that's what sort of where we sit today talking about this topic and what people are interested in now. It's definitely a bit of the Wild West.
I think the best analogy that I've heard was, we have a Tesla that uses AI, right? When it comes to sensors to figure out where it's going, self-driving cars. And we have a school bus full of children. School bus is broken down and we're on a cliff, right? So it's either you go off or you hit the school bus with a bunch of kids. Which one is the AI going to choose? It doesn't think like a human, right? So that's kind of the issue that I have with AI is it's not intelligence, right? There's no artificial intelligence. It's simply scraping all the data that we've collected over the years using the internet and then articulating all that information into something of its own. Now, there's a lot of copyright stuff that goes on. There's a lot of issues when it comes to, validity. What would you say in regards to how people can prevent this kind of issue from happening, from getting misinformation, from getting, not so valid information from the chat GPT or from the chatbots?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question, right? And I think this really gets to the heart of how we as humans interact with computers and technology. There's always been this tenuous disconnection, if you will, because the internet was always this anonymous place where you could go and there wasn't really that human connection. We've bridged that gap at some things. You can find really great communities on Discord now and Twitch and like all these things. So the initial I'm disconnected from my social network because I'm on a computer, and now we've brought some of that in my view, I think if we can just remain somewhat in our humanness and that social connection that we have with each other as we use these tools, that's where, the ethical implications on how we use AI, the programs we write, at the end of the day, these algorithms that we put into technology that could have risk, especially like self-driving car problem, right? Like you had mentioned,
Totally.
you can't lose your ethics writing software because, well, they just told me to do this, right? Like you still have that humanness and that ethical mooring of, the kind of what grinds you to your values and your set of like, this is wrong. We should not be doing such things. And that social mindset of that. I mean, it gets into kind of a faith discussion, like what are your values? What are your belief systems? But ultimately, as we write AI algorithms, as we adopt this technology, those ethical concerns are valid because, people do evil things. They do dumb things or greedy, selfish, like everything else, right? But I think ultimately, as we adopt this technology, it will be curious to see what type of controls we can put in there. I'm excited to see hackers work on this problem because, like everything else, the old video game hacking, right? The old freakers from the these that did the stuff with telephone freaking and stuff. AI is going to be no different. It's going to be pretty exciting to watch how we break AI algorithms and the consequences that we can disrupt. Hopefully, there's nothing totally malicious of it, kind of all in good fun and poking, issues that the security is out there. Grab some skins on the AI. You're like, your AI is insecure. Here you go. Boom. Those are always fun to see. Ultimately, yeah, if like we can just keep our moral self to us as we use that technology. I think that's really what my hope is for not only the pen testing security community, but then ultimately as the general everybody else starts using this. I hope we can kind of stay there.
There's a lot of prompt injections. We have Dan, or I don't know the full term of Dan. Have you used Dan before? It's like a prompt jailbreak thing for ChatGPT.
I've not heard of that.
No? Yeah, so Dan, there's a few prompts, and brilliant people figured out ways to manipulate the ChatGPT to become the bad guy. But it's crazy. But prompt injections seem to be a huge thing right now. One of my buddies was able to retrieve the prompt instructions of an AI algorithm. Now, this wasn't ChatGPT. He goes, I don't really know what I'm doing with this whole AI thing, but you're an AI, so maybe you can help me. What's a few instructions that I can feed it? And it gave a list of all of its own instructions, which is kind of cool. So those kind of attacks, I think, are valuable, but they're also not RCE. Like, we don't have a ton of severe vulnerabilities yet. I think the biggest vulnerability, right, is that it's going to dumb down our generation. At least that's what I think. It's not set in stone. That's just how I think of AI. But let's pivot a little bit more toward your job, right? What exactly you do in IT or SecOps, right?
Yeah, so I'm an IT operations manager. We have a portfolio of web applications and systems for our customers in the federal government. It's a traditional team of sysadmin, database admin stuff. And because it's federal, it's a little bit different, right? Some of it is pretty legacy because it just hasn't been funded, the way that you normally would. There's some tech debt that accumulates, and like everything else in the federal government's budgeting system, some things get a lot of love and they're updated and they are doing AI, machine learning, special models, super pet projects and test events. And if they're funded, we've got the latest and greatest. The government, to some extent, has those resources to be able to try stuff. In a good bit of my portfolio, it's pretty legacy. They have some really old technologies. There's some vulnerabilities that come with that, or you do the best to work through that via the RMF and the compliance frameworks that the government has. It's very much a either you're very resourced or you're under resourced, or maybe you're somewhere in between. But ultimately, yeah, it's a interesting problem set. I have a little bit of experience on the private side, seeing some of that stuff where you're only compliant to the extent that it feels like if I can qualify for my cybersecurity insurance, I'm good. Everything above that is maybe wasted money. You have to make that business case, right? In the government side, we kind of do compliance and there's not that profit incentive to stay lean and efficient. And I think Doge is kind of bringing some of this stuff out more recently. But ultimately, the federal government's IT problems are unique from what general industry sees and what most businesses have. And so it's been exciting to watch us migrate to commercial cloud hosting, work a subset of problems that are after advanced threats and APTs and trying to secure IT systems from really hard problem sets like that, as well as spending extra time and resources to actually validate and compliance framework and like all of the extra rigor that normally a business is not going to spend quite as much time and resources in validating security for everything else. Where in the government side, they do, depending on the criticality of those systems. And so trying to do that as efficiently as possible, that's definitely a challenge. And I'm one of quite a few others working on that problem.
So how do you go about trying to secure all of these different devices? I mean, you're talking about thousands probably. So, with you and your team, is it like based on remote desktop? Do you need to know SSH, or is there some other form of, transfer file protocol or something along those lines? to communicate with all your different devices and get things going?
Yeah, so it's a difficult problem. And part of the way that we do that is it gets segmented out, right? I'm not alone and afraid trying to secure a IT system internal to my team. And this is all of the people that we have. There are enterprise level resources within the federal government, like CISA puts out guidance and things that are out there. Defense Information Security Agency puts out, STIGs, those security technical guides that have a bunch of compliance requirements that you follow. And that compliance framework, if those standards are written really well, that's a great baseline to keep you secure. And you don't have to spend a lot of brain bites. You kind of run some automated tools, you scan that. We take care of the most egregious threats and the most vulnerable things on there, call it like a 1 to n of the lowest hanging fruit type of security issues so that we can focus on the more nuanced type of things. And then for my team, we try to just stay current with things, right? You could be really good network admin and all of a sudden you move into a commercial cloud environment. Terminology is different, the tool sets are different, access controls don't work the same way, and your knowledge of networking and HTTP protocols and even how browsers function, it's such a large knowledge set to try to build on. And so for any one person to do that, I think is almost an impossible thing. So to some extent, you have to divide and conquer that. And so that's kind of where we are. We have some external teams that try to give that outside red team perspective, running some custom scanning tools and vulnerability scanners, as well as I don't know what level my headquarters is doing for hands-on pen testing stuff. I'm pretty aware that they are, but like some of that's abstracted away. Our focus is more or less the things that are on our control, those servers, the web apps themselves, running our own tools, and try to expand out a little bit beyond what's normally complied with that framework of, yeah, you shall do this because the vulnerability tool found this. And so you're compliant, right? And then trying to go from compliance into actually being secure is definitely where we're like trying to grow into that. And yeah, it's just a day at a time. You kind of learn and try to not do dumb stuff.
Something that you have to be careful with vulnerability scanners is definitely the severity level of some of the findings that it has. I think Nessus does like an SSL cert is a critical. Why? Like what's the purpose? So I think vulnerability scanners are a great way to start out, but the finishing touch is obviously the manual penetration testing, which I think everyone should do. Some people try to just get away with it by getting an empty report by doing just phone scans, which is not what they're meant for, right? They're meant to help you. And I think that a lot of companies are nervous about it because if they don't have proper policies in place or procedures, then it starts to turn into what exactly did you do wrong? Because you don't want us to find it, right? And that's when vendors start to question you. I don't know. Every company is different, but looks like we're running up a little bit on time. Is there any final thoughts you want to get to the audience about how to maybe break into the field or how to network?
Yeah, so I'd say I think my biggest like advice for anybody that's trying to break into infosec is to just stay eager and be be brave, right? Be strong in your own skin, right? There's ghost jobs out there where you feel like you're wasting your time. Try to network with people face to face. At least you know they actually exist versus some stuff online. I think ghost jobs is one of the worst things that a company does to candidates, to waste their time and to just be really mean in that way. And in that way, it can be really discouraging, right? You spend a lot of time, you get nothing on your effort. It can just get really gut checking, right? And so I would say just be confident in yourself. If you're willing to learn and you work hard and just find your niche in the team as you start to break into the field, don't be afraid to take something that's entry level and just work on it or something related and kind of work into a position. That human aspect is still always going to be there. You still got to work with people and being on a team and those soft skills of being able to do stuff. And then get involved with B-sides. Get plugged into a local meetup at ISC2 or any of the certification stuff, local cyber infosec hacking groups. 2600 has chapters all over the US too that are great. Any of that kind of stuff to just kind of get plugged into the community and then try to just branch out, kind of like you, right? get in the industry, struggle at first, go back 5, 10 years from now and look at like the first parts of your podcast or your efforts to assert yourself or to get into the industry and just try to be a positive force. Like I said, try to not get lost from that grounding and that moral center. So if you're writing an AI algorithm on like, should I let somebody pull information on how to build a bomb, or should I like maybe restrict some of that stuff in your AI algorithm, or just whatever the business that you're in, try to be a good person, try to be kind of respectful of everybody and a good citizen online with that stuff. And yeah, excited to be part of the communities.
Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. This was great.
Glad to hear. Have a good one.
Thank you. Take care.